3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Queen Stage. We're here to spotlight the athletes, stories, and action in women's cycling, giving the sport the attention it deserves. And we're going to do so with the quality, depth, and personality the sport demands.
I'm Rosael Torres Davis.
I'm Betsy Welch.
I'm Anne-Marije Rook.
And I'm Molly Hurford.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast, where we are now 2 days post Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. We covered the race for the full 9 stages, going stage by stage to bring you all the action, excitement, drama, and intrigue of the 4th Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Today, we are here to share our thoughts about how it went and just the overall sentiment we're left with after 9 really exciting days of racing. But before we dive in, a huge thanks to Ruckus Composites for making this show a reality. Built on a mission to push the boundaries of carbon fiber performance, Ruckus Composites and Aerospace are leaders in engineering, research, repair, and inspection. Deep breath. Ladies, it's Tuesday. The race ended Sunday. You had one day off, even though none of us, of course, truly had a day off, but we had a day off from the racing. What are you left with? What are you thinking about on Tuesday, 2 days post-tour? Do you miss it? Are there any particular storylines that are stuck in your head? Any rants you want to get out?
Massive hangover. It's the first time in 5-6 weeks that I don't have the TV running first thing in the morning. It feels really weird.
Yeah,
I feel like my vision is better all of a sudden because I'm less glued to 2 different screens and different depths. And I feel like I can see the world again, which is nice, but also devastated to, be at the end of race coverage for now.
Yeah, I'm feeling, a little recovered thanks to our rest day yesterday, which the riders did not get in their 9-day tour. But I was left thinking a little bit a lot about Kasia and Niewiadoma of Canyon SORAM. I really wish we had seen more out of her. And then it made me think, should the tour be 10 days long? So we can give more riders a chance to to shine. But yeah.
She got on the podium again, which she has done every single edition of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift thus far. That is worth recognizing. Although I would have preferred a race for first place and not for the podium in terms of watching and making the race entertaining. And what do y'all think? Is podium worth celebrating that way that Canyon SORAM is celebrating it? And
It's a really good question. And FDJ Suez also celebrating Demi Vollering's second place. You saw pictures of her popping champagne bottles and spraying around and stuff. And I love it, although it's also a little bit weird to see from riders who we're used to seeing winning. And we know that they're not completely happy with second and third, right?
Right. I mean, it's of course a podium is worth celebrating. I mean, that goes without saying. But for those 2 particular riders, I think that's what makes it interesting this year. If this were Sarah Gigante on the podium, would we be talking differently, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that again, I mean, for me, that's sort of one of the big things I keep thinking about is Demi and Kasia, and I mean, being on the podium at that race all 4 years is a huge accomplishment, and it's a testament to what great riders they are, what good tacticians they are. I think what's tricky about it is it wasn't. Yeah, it was too safe. It wasn't that. It didn't feel hard fought. Not that they didn't fight and work their butts off, but Do you guys know what I mean?
Yeah, it felt the same way with the men's, right? Watching that final mountain stage where Jonas didn't attack. He just stayed on the wheel, and he's like, oh, that was a headwind. I wasn't going to be able to get away. And so he wasn't willing to risk losing his second place for potentially the win. And that's the fight that I don't love, the playing it safe so you get podium versus like risking it all to potentially win the whole thing. And personally, that's just me as a competitor, where I'm all like, go all in versus playing it safe. And that makes me perhaps not very smart as an athlete. But at the same time, as us viewers, it makes for interesting viewing if someone's just willing to throw caution in the wind and just go for the overall win.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
'cause-
that is a fair take. I guess I just think that out of respect to the sport and to every athlete that participated, I think you should celebrate, anything in the top 20, I would think, when it's a race that hard. But yeah, I know what you mean from an entertainment point of view and from a point of view of the people that are watching, like us and the many fans. I wish they would have left everything out there and risk losing a podium spot. But at the same time, it's like these podium spots also come with prize money and that kind of thing. And they don't want to let their teams down after all the work they did. So it's hard.
Should we talk about the prize money?
Dive on in.
Rant incoming.
That has been a headline this week. It's actually been impressive to see the mainstream media pick up the fact that Pauline Ferrand-Prévost's first place prize was, I believe, 10% of what Tadej Pogačar won in winning the Tour de France. I mean, we knew women's cycling had a long way to go, but I think, and we knew the prize money. It's not like that was a secret or anything. So if anything, I'm actually weirdly heartened by the fact that it actually has been making headlines this week as a problem, as a thing that mainstream media is picking up on. While I don't love that for her, I am happy to see that at least now people are talking about it more in a way that's like, hey, this seems like a problem.
I don't know. As someone who's been in this and been doing this for 12 years, I've written that story for 12 years, and it took 12 effing years for people to pay attention. I'm like, yeah, I've been writing that story every year since it was a tour, since there was any sort of comparison to be made. But yeah, I'm glad people are paying attention, but is that enough to change it?
I think it is, because in cyclocross, we actually did see that happen, right? We did see equal payouts for UCI races 12, 15 years ago. Like C1, C2 actually got equalized largely due to outside pressure, and a lot of articles about it. And not to say that we all haven't been writing this story for a lot of years, because we definitely have, but it's that weird thing where sometimes it picks up the right amount of steam at the right time. You're literally wearing the not a moment, it's a movement shirt. So fingers crossed that the 12 years of backlog on that finally gave it the steam it needed to start going.
But what do we think the prize money should be? Because the way I see it is like if they're racing half the days that the men are racing, then it should be close to half, based on the amount of days that you're putting into work.
It's tricky, right? Because in cyclocross, that was a very easy metric you could pull. People are selling tickets. How many tickets are being brought in because of the women's cycling? And so it's a very easy math to do with road racing, and you're looking at viewership numbers. It gets a lot more complicated. My take is perhaps a controversial one. It's more parody versus straight up 1-for-1. And so maybe it's the dollar per hour raced value. What does Tadej get for racing 1 hour, and what do the women get? So that it's not, because it's so easy to be like, oh, well, they race less, they race fewer stages. So make it equal in terms of hour raced, distance raced, whatever. Therefore, you can't really get into that murky water of the race is shorter, they bring in fewer sponsorship dollars, they bring in less viewership in general, and those are all valid arguments because ultimately sport is a business. But yeah, I do agree that it needs to be a lot higher than it is right now.
Yeah, but in that sense, then, and maybe tell me now if this is a BS argument that holds no water. But also we've been seeing in the news that the viewership for the Tour de France Hommes have been declining over the last 5 years or so. So should their salaries decline? I mean, that is so not fair. That I think that's an argument that men would use against women. And women getting fairly paid. But there's one thing aside from prize money, which I think needs better control there. I do believe in salary caps for cycling, because I wonder, how about these sponsors that are sponsoring teams on both sides? If we can have a salary cap, especially would be affecting the men's side, would that force them to put, if they want to put more money into the sport, to put it in the women's team?
Similarly, I believe in team cap, like budget team caps. So
Agreed, yeah.
kind of like Formula One has it. So that not necessarily because of one rider getting paid more than others, but to help the lower budget teams have a bigger chance. If there's a cap on how much you can spend on a team, how much endorsements you can bring in, maybe that would help the lower budget teams have a greater opportunity, because there would be less of a disparity there.
Okay, before we solve all of the problems of women's cycling and the money behind it, let's come back to the actual race itself. Anyone have a favorite moment of the week? Let's go something positive from my grumpy beginning to that tangent. Sorry, everybody.
Well, I guess positive. I like to talk about how this was the edition or the year of veteran riders, like really doing well and like giving hope for athletes that they still have time to peak. And it's a little complicated too, right? Because on the men's side of the sport, we tend to see it more dominated by the Gen Z generation, but the women's, at least now at this level, has been more dominated by experience. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot is 33 years old. Mariana Vos is 38. Mavi Garcia is 41. These are all stage winners. Kasia Niewiadoma is 30, which I didn't know. Paulina Ruiz-Jikers, who made the top 10, is 32. It's just really nice to see that you can have like a long career, because maybe people think that you peak in your mid-20s and that's it. And that it is really rare in elite sports, and it's beautiful to see a mix of rising stars, because we also saw a lot of 24-year-olds like doing really well on the tour. But yeah, like I did a little deep dive just in the age, like what are the age average in the tour, and it's mostly the age is between 22 and 25. But then when we see the juniors development side, it doesn't seem that the pipeline there, maybe Rook, you may have more information about this, but that the pipeline in the junior side of women's cycling is not as developed to support what we're seeing, where like, because we have heard a lot of comments about young riders thinking that if they don't make it at 17 or 19, they're never going to get a contract and that kind of thing. And then they also don't have, we don't have our own under 23 world championships. A lot of riders are coming from the junior ranks to the elite. So yeah, like I don't know if there's something in the system that is not supporting that belief that as a woman athlete you can have a longer career.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think women's cycling has proven that is something you can do with, stories like Kirsten Faulkner coming to the sport rather late. Evie Stevens came also quite late. And I think if you actually look through the peloton, there's a lot of people that have had careers before they started cycling. So I think we're just seeing the growing pains of the sport is growing. It's becoming more professional. Junior development programs are just beginning. I don't think it's not like, I think everyone knows that you can be an older female and be competitive in endurance sports. I think like physiology also determines that, and we actually peak much later than men do. But yeah, I think it's just playing catch up. I think science is only now discovering that we peak much later and what women's bodies can do and everything else. So Betsy.
It's just, listening to you guys, it's just one of the many nuances of women's cycling that makes it so fascinating and so interesting and so different than men's. And I feel a little frustrated that while the sport is the same and the riders sort of want the same things in terms of like the races, the equal, the same race, men and women's editions, it does sometimes feel like a much newer sport that could be rewriting or writing for the first time its own rules. Like, I can't help and think about gravel, which, if you talk about prize money, it is equal. And granted, I'm sure I could get a lot of haters in the comments if I talk about gravel and try and use it as an example. But there are some lessons to take from it. And it's because it is newer and it was able to write these rules as it wanted because it wasn't steeped in tradition and it wasn't trying to like fit in the mold of the Tour de France, which was founded in 1903 for men. Like, come on. I don't know. And I think it's a challenge. I don't think it's necessarily easy to say, okay, women's cycling wants all the same races and these things to be the same, and we want some things to be different. I don't know. Can it be? We are different. We are different. The racing is different. It's a different time. It's like modern era. So could we be, incorporating all this stuff that we know about, that we're learning through science about women's bodies and endurance and nutrition and all this stuff and the way we have different styles of racing, and could we be kind of like flipping the script a little or maybe a lot?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, it's just like it's more, I guess we just have more and more proof every year that we need to address and take on the development of women's cycling in its own original way and doing what it's working for it.
Yeah, I actually loved, there was one meme that was talking about, rider respect was one of these big topics of discussion this entire tour. Lots of team directors and riders kind of making comments and all this stuff about, when do you leave the yellow jersey behind and when do you do this? When do you do this after a crash? All that stuff. And there was a really great, I thought, meme that was saying, the women's tour isn't the men's tour. Like, it's a new type of racing. It's only for, like, because everyone keeps saying, like, well, it's tradition to do X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, it's not. This race is 4 years old. Maybe we don't have to go with exactly how the men have done it for decades. And side note, like, why should we? The race is 9 days, not 21 days. Totally different situations. Could go off on that for forever, but it is different racing now. Like,
yeah, that whole little drama between those two DSs, I was just like, this is like deja vu. Like, this could be what's his nuts over in the men's peloton. that horrible DS. That's like, I'm not even going to name his name. You guys all know who I'm talking about, but it's like, don't bring this energy over here, okay?
We'll note that was men. 2 DS dudes.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, that was 2 male DSs.
To flip it back into a positive side, this is a positive. Women's cycling is different than men's cycling. We had 9 days of very exciting races. People were really entertained. If we're going to draw comparisons, it was more entertaining than the men's race because we didn't know who was going to win. And for me, a big highlight was just the sheer number of breakout rides. I would even say that PFP's ride was a breakout ride because we hadn't seen her before. She's never done anything like this before. So that was super exciting. Maeva Squeben was super exciting. Franziska Koch. There were just so many good rides out there and breakout rides that we're definitely going to see more of these riders in the future.
Thanks for bringing us
I would
back,
say Mavi
Rook.
Garcia. Yeah. Thanks for bringing it positive again. Mavi Garcia's win, I think, was actually like my highlight, even though she's not normally one of my, not in like an offensive way. She's not one of my favorite riders, right? Like she's not someone I talk about all the time. I've written about her a ton, but she's not someone I'm like super familiar with and was really rooting for. But then just watching her go for it and hang on to it and just how psyched she was to get that win. Like, I still get goosebumps just thinking about that finish. So that was absolutely a highlight. And then it was just cherry on top that she's 41 years old. So there's hope for all of us.
Yeah,
Except for you,
absolutely.
Betsy. That's gone.
Oh, Rook.
Teasing, I'm
okay.
teasing.
That's okay. I'm in my trail runner era anyway. So, no, Molly, I agree. That was, thanks for bringing that back up because that feels like it was a lifetime ago that Mavi won that stage. But I feel throughout the week we have been saying this name a lot, but I still, my heart is warmed by Sarah Gigante and sort of the hope and promise and grit and vulnerability of this rider, and her whole team. I guess I want to shout out AG Insurance Sudal too, because I think they really, there was such great storytelling around like the team part of this sport, and they exemplified that. You know, they had a rider in yellow for 4 days that they absolutely rallied around and then sort of seamlessly pivoted to riding for another rider. And you had people like Justine Gerke who were just like the consummate teammate. And so, yeah, I think my heart is warmed and goes out to Sarah too, because she kind of got caught up in some of this media drama about, you know, her descending and, oh my God, she lost all these places, and she was hurt by it, and she said as much. And so just to like be that vulnerable, I think adds so much, and we don't always see that from men. And that also adds a depth to the women's sport that I think is really special and makes it even more exciting to watch. Sarah, we are huge fans of you over here at the Queen Stage and can't wait to
Gigantic fans even.
She's 24 years old. So more to come.
And actually, on the note of Kim LaCourt, the other surprise storyline that I was not expecting to be a hot topic of the tour was everyone talking about periods. That part was awesome. Probably really weird for the male commentators, to suddenly have to get on board with it and be comfortable talking about it. Kudos to Anthony. Shout out to Anthony for he was all in on it. He was willing to have those conversations. Kudos to the riders for bringing it up. I mean, can you imagine 10 years ago, any of those riders being willing to mention being on their period during a race?
Can you imagine Phil Liggett talking about Kim LaCourt's period?
I mean, we've ragged on Phil quite a bit, and rightly so. But another positive spin on that is to see how many people are demanding better coverage. You know, they're like, no, this is no longer acceptable, which was really cool. Like all over social media, people were commenting on it, and we got a lot of comments about it. And it is neat that we are in a point now where people are like, no, women's sports deserve the best commentators that are out there. And Phil Liggett, well, an icon, and certainly serves the men's sport, or has served the men's sport for a long time. For the women's side of things, we deserve better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like people who are paying, you know, for those subscriptions at Peacock and NBC. Yeah, exactly. Like let them know. Let them know on social media. Like most brands do check that kind of feedback and write them an email. Like, yes, absolutely.
Question for you guys, just about, because I'm thinking about how many of my friends were texting and watching, and how cool that is, how every year it seems to be there's a few more people in my own orbit who are like, oh my God, what a stage. What do you guys think about the dates of the race and when it starts, sort of on the heels of the men's finishing up? Like in a perfect world, when would this race be for you guys?
Ooh, and not even on the heels, like literally just like overlapping the two stages, which is
right.
I mean, you can see why they think it's a good idea, because like, oh good, you can kind of seamlessly transition from watching one to the other if you want to spend 8 hours in front of your TV on Saturday and Sunday. Flip side, do you want to spend 8 hours in front of your TV Saturday and Sunday? And if you've been watching 19 stages of the Tour de France, you probably want to see that one through, and fair enough on that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a big question, right? Because when you do a literally during the men's Tour de France, you're now asking people to split their time. Are you going to do it in a different time of day? But then again, then you're watching 8 hours of racing a day. Do you, the way on the heels after the Tour de France, the men's Tour de France, I don't love it because people are a little cycling fatigued, if you will.
Yeah.
They've watched it for 3 weeks already, and now you're asking them to watch another 9 days of racing. It's a tricky one. I don't know. Do we separate it completely? Let it be its own standalone, not have it during a men's Giro, not have it the same way, the women's Giros during the men's Tour de France. Like, what? I don't know. What do you think,
Yeah,
Rosael?
no, I think it's really tough because I think we just need more time of the race happening to see what data, the broadcasters can get and interpret it, because I don't know, I keep thinking if it is true, for example, the WNBA reports a lot that a lot of their fans don't even come from like the regular NBA, right? They're like new fans of basketball that are coming just for the WNBA. And if that was the case, and I'm not saying it is, because I don't think it is exactly the case right now, but let's say if the sport develops, we're at a point where, like, I don't know, like there's not a huge overlap between Tour de France Hommes and Tour de France Femmes fans. Like, then does it even matter if they overlap at all or not? But it's very complicated. And also, like, we're not even talking about all the other races in the calendar. Like, it's also unfair to me, the Tour de France has such a high place in the calendar and in cycling overall. But it is, at the end, it is a climber's race at the end. And, I also love the classics. And like, if you move one thing, then you have to move around others. And we have 2 other grand tours, with the Vuelta a España Femenina and the Giro d'Italia Donne. So I just think, like, maybe it is not a question for us to answer. We can give our hopes, but I think we just need more information maybe on who are the fans, where are they watching, what are their lifestyle like, and their patterns, behavioral patterns when it comes to consuming the sport.
Betsy, you asked the question. Do you have an answer?
I want it before the men's race.
Like a warm-up.
Yeah,
that's what people will call it, though.
Well, they have their own problems, but I want it before the men's because I want it to stand alone. I want it to get people excited. I want it to be the only thing they're talking about, not like still talking about the men's. And as I'm seeing today, the headlines are like all back to men's racing, which is annoying. But yeah, Rosael, of course, there's so many other races and a lot of them do come early in the season. But what if it sort of like mirrors the men's grand tours, but isn't right next to it? Because the women's Giro is moving to May, right? Which is cool. Why can't the women's tour then also be bumped up and the women's Vuelta be after? I don't know. This is me who also just said, like, we can buck tradition and write our own script. Yeah. But
if you want to buck tradition altogether, here's a very, very controversial take. Alternate years.
Oh.
Like, like a FIFA World Cup is only every 4 years, but you get a women's or a men's every 2 years. So alternate years. 1 year
Olympic
we're going to have a men's
style.
Tour de France, and the next one we'll have a women's Tour de France.
Yeah, and also there are people, because I read this just this morning in a newsletter, there are people who think that our season as a whole, like the road racing season, isn't built like for engagement, in the sense that some people think the biggest event of the year should go at the end. Like, basically, like, we will be moving a race like the Tour de France to like August or early September, like the World Championships, just to close out that chapter. But that's also really hard to ask.
Well, yeah, because what about the multidiscipline athletes? You're now asking all the cyclocrossers to they're already having to choose. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it makes sense maybe in a storyline to bookend it like that, but then, it's just there are so many variables that make this complicated.
You hate to say it's like not quite as simple as basketball or like the WNBA, but it really isn't, right? Because you're exactly right. Most of the women do some kind of other racing or other work, frankly, through the rest of the year, like a fair number of the peloton. I'd actually be interested to see, if you took the entire start list, how many of them race other disciplines, or have other jobs that they're
Yeah.
doing. 'Cause
And also the viewers, like I want to know like what other sports are cycling fans watching, and are they watching both men's and women's? Because then I would think like a lot of people who I know who are fans of NFL and all that, they are watching like four different sports throughout the year, you know. So it's like you can't always be taking into consideration that this happens when this, and then you're gonna move, and it's not even your sport. It's hard.
Okay, speaking of the like long term and alternating years and all this, what do we know in terms of next year or like any sponsor scuttlebutt? Have we heard anything about the future of the race? What is the situation as it stands?
Well, as it stands, we only have one more year, right, of Zwift. So Avec Zwift, for one more year. They re-upped last year for another year, and then what? That's the big question. Will
Well,
there be
it's
another
a
title sponsor? Will the ASO run it as is? Who knows? Betsy?
it's a huge question because I know it's been 3 years now, but at the inaugural, or excuse me, 4 at the inaugural edition, I can't remember who I spoke to, but it's no secret without Zwift, the race wouldn't have happened. And is now this sort of Zwift's responsibility? That doesn't quite seem right. Who else is going to step up?
Yeah, I love to see a big brand like Nike continue to step it up. Imagine how cool that would be, like the Tour de France avec Nike. Or I don't know, like what brands would you like to see? Another brand that comes to mind is like Lululemon. I don't know, like make everybody look really, really good. Like maybe the whole staff is dressed with Lululemon like they do in tennis, where like Lacoste will sponsor some of the big events, and then all the referees and staff are dressed head to toe in Lacoste.
But do we need that? Like it's not the Tour de France avec whatever. The ASO
yeah.
has long seen the business case for the men's Tour de France. So has Zwift now proven the business case of having a women's Tour de France?
Well, and I think the really yes would be my response to that. I think the scary thing is this is going to be a conversation happening like pretty soon, because it's not like this can wait till after next year's edition to say what's going to happen in 2027, right? Like these decisions kind of start 2 years early. So I think this is going to be a big storyline this fall, would be my guess. ASO has to be thinking about it. Brands have to be thinking about it. Zwift has to be thinking about it. What happens when Zwift drops off of it? If they drop off of it, what does that do to them?
I mean, Zwift has said that this has been an absolutely worthy investment. It's not just driven by passion. There is a business case to be made. And for them, they are seeing a return of investment. They see their own gender split has increased since investing into this race. But they did say they will be involved one way or another, because they definitely believe in this event. But yeah, we don't know yet if they will continue as the title sponsor, or maybe there'll be multiple sponsors. Who knows? Every jersey has a sponsor, and that's true in the men's and the women's race. So maybe there'll be a jersey sponsor in the future. But yeah, you're right. This is going to be a big point of conversation in the next few months.
God, I hope it stays Zwift, only because I feel like I finally got really good at just smoothly saying Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, just very naturally. So I'm going to be annoyed if I have to learn a whole other avec something.
With that said, though, let's, round of applause here for Zwift for making this happen and continuing to make this happen for another year. We're really grateful for the investment that they have made in the sport and this event specifically.
100%. Yeah. And realistically, it's going to be a Jumbo Visma situation, I think. Even if they stop being part of it, they will forever be part of it. You can't, it's so hard to say Visma Lisa bike, right? You just, like Jumbo Visma.
Right.
I mean, what? So I think Zwift is, has really stamped this race like as part of their brand.
And also to that, a big shout out to Kate Verano of Zwift, who has also sort of really carried the flag for that relationship and been on the ground and been just like a tireless advocate this race and women's cycling in general. Thanks, Kate.
100%.
We love you.
Okay, armchair coaching time, talking about this year's edition. Do we think that, so here's my big question as I was like thinking through this last couple days, musing over it on my run and stuff. Do you think that the teams expected PFP to do what she did, or had any thought that they were going to have to be covering such an attack? And if they didn't, here's my question. PFP put out that she was training for the Col de la Madeleine, that was the climb she was going to attack on. This was not a secret plan. Did they just not think she was going to be able to do it and just were caught completely off guard? Or what do we think? How do we think this happened? Betsy.
Rook, you may be about to say the same thing, but I gotta say, I think they underestimate a mountain biker. I think no, really, because that's her efforts are mountain bike efforts. These are like 90-minute red line, all out, and road cyclists are incredible too, but like I'm not sure they thought enough about her experience and background in mountain biking. If I don't know if we're going to go there, but this sort of the fixation with the weight loss and stuff, I just want to say yes. And is that why she won the Tour de France? I don't think so, but we won't know. I think it's more of her. It was many things, but really like to not underestimate this mountain bike effort. I don't think enough was said about Kim LaCourte's mountain bike background either. I mean, she focused on cross country and marathon for 7 years. And we saw her like gritty. I mean, the times that she had to claw back from either crashing or getting dropped, and she did. Again, mountain bike, essentially a 90-minute time trial. So that's my hot mountain bike take.
That is not what I was going to say. Not that I disagree. I was going to say that everyone targeted the Col de la Madeleine. Everyone trained that. Everyone reconned it. It wasn't. Everyone was going to attack on that climb. It wasn't a secret anywhere in the peloton that this was going to be the decisive moment in the 9 days of racing. The only difference was that Pauline was just so much stronger than the rest of the field. Also tactically, that team played it very, very smartly. Again, with putting Marianne in the jerseys early on and making sure PFP never lost time throughout the race and letting her attack when the moment came. But yeah, I think everyone targeted the same climb, and she was plain and simple, stronger, faster, smarter than everyone else this tour.
Yeah, and I mean, Pauline is the complete package, I believe, when it comes to an athlete. Because also, if we just want to talk really quickly about this all like weight drama, also the way she has handled the whole thing from the beginning, because this was an issue even before the tour started, because she was saying, that she had reached her goal weight and all that. But even afterwards, where people were asking her after the race, like about her weight, and they were also asking Demi Vollering, I think she's handled it really well. And just sticking to the facts and reminding people that, yeah, they're athletes and they can be seen as role models, but that it is not up to them to like educate like young people all over the world. It is not up to them. It is up to like parents and school and etc. She did her job. She did her job.
Well, and no one says that about the men. I completely agree with that. Like, we never say like, oh, Jonas is setting a bad example for the young men by being too scared, or like any of them who talk about weight loss. Like, we're never saying like they're bad role models. It seems that it's only the women who are put in this category of like having to be role models.
And I would like to tell to the listeners that Anne-Marije Rook here wrote a great opinion piece about this very same issue for Cycling Weekly. You should go read it. Do not read the comment section though, because like it's like people did not understand what she was trying to communicate. And also there was a particular comment that talked about how skinny cyclists are not attractive, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa! Like athletes do not owe you attractiveness. You know, nobody in this world owes you attractiveness. Like, they're athletes, they're doing their job, and I'm just tired of people commenting on women's bodies with such scrutiny that men do not receive. Because it doesn't matter if she was too heavy, they were gonna say something. You know, like it doesn't matter where you are. Even with Demi, then the question to Demi was like, do you not lose enough weight? It was something like that. Like, do you think weight was a factor and that's why you lost to PFP? That's not a fair question. That is borderline rude.
Yeah, I mean, cycling has had this really long and rather complicated relationship with weight, with body composition. It's because it's an endurance sport where climbing remains to be king, especially at a Tour de France or Tour de France Femmes. And so power to weight ratio is this ultimate inescapable metric, and weight matters. And she and her team, Pauline and her team, did everything available to them to make sure her race day physique was as lean and as strong as possible. It's the same thing that Jonas Vingegaard, who's on her team, gets access to. He does the same training. He has same nutritional input, same medically guided support from coaches, from staff, and she did the same thing that everyone else on the men's side does, any man in the mountains does, to get as lean and as optimized as possible. But she was the only one that received this public scrutiny that the men didn't get. And whether this approach, this you must be so ultra lean in order to win, is something that we support, that's debatable, obviously. But she didn't do anything else, anything unusual from what the men do. And that's the part I took issue with, that she does the same thing as her male counterpart. And she's the only one that's getting so heavily criticized for it. So yeah, that led to me ranting for 1,200 words. And it ended up being a really rather distracting topic narrative throughout this tour.
Yes, very distracting. And also, I think, it just lays bare the incredibly fraught and complicated and complex and centuries-old relationship that exists between women, weight, looks, and this cycling's own weight problem, just for lack of a better, is just layered on this sort of societal relationship that we have. Like all four of, any woman, it does not matter who you are, what body type you inhabit, if you're an athlete or not, you have dealt with feelings of just feelings about your weight, about your looks. And so, it's not surprising that this sort of blew up. I think we all agree that it's tiresome, it's distracting, it's beside the point, it's unfair. It's not easy to talk about this stuff, and that's unfortunate that it's not, but that's the truth. And I think, I've been thinking a lot about it over the past couple of days. Would we be having this conversation if Pauline hadn't won? Would we be having this conversation? There's so many what ifs, and I agree with you guys that I think Pauline handled it well. She wasn't condoning it. She was saying, this is what I did. I'm not saying I'm healthy for it. I'm going to, work on, now she's going to sort of undo it. And that's all she can do, really. And I hate that other women now feel like they have to speak in reference to that. Like I saw some quotes from Demi about, and this could have been a language thing, maybe lost in translation, but she referred to herself as heavy a few times, a heavier rider. That's where it gets, I think, this kind of conversation gets tricky. And yes, in comment section gets absolutely blown out of the water. But let's just sort of, I don't know, take a breath and recognize how difficult it is to talk about this stuff, and also how I think, well, it was handled internally. I'm not saying that the media handled it well, but
Whatever it takes to get clicks.
yeah, right.
A question I had about this whole Pauline's preparation. She disappeared for 10 weeks from racing. She wasn't in the race circuit during that time. Other riders did continue to race. She had the privilege of being away and focusing solely on this race. Do you think that's what it takes to win a Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift? Or do you think we're going to potentially see this more, where riders become more selective in their appearances?
That's one of the things I was thinking about when I was talking about changing the date, because I was thinking, like, what if Pauline's approach inspires all these other people to sort of like drop out for 2 months and go do these training camps and stuff. And if we move it earlier in the season, they won't be able to, thus maybe, I don't want to say this, but level the playing field. I don't know. I'm not sure. I kind of wish we'd seen her more racing.
Yeah.
Did she?
Yeah.
But that's not her obligation. Like, there's no rule. What do you think, Rosael?
Yeah. Well, I think every rider needs to try different things and see what works. And that could also change as your goals change. And because also riders go through, in this sport, I don't know how often this happens in other sports, but in cycling, we see riders going from GC riders to becoming one-day riders, and that kind of thing, or all-rounders, punchier riders. And I just think people need to try and see what works for them, because I know a lot of cyclists who do feel better and they get more confident out of having a lot of race days under their legs. And just like feeding off all that information they're getting from being in the peloton and seeing who's in shape, who isn't, who is new, who's this, who's that, which teams are jamming well, which aren't. But then other riders are able to get that information in other ways, or they just have such mental fortitude and confidence that they don't need to put themselves in those situations that often.
I was just thinking that it would be a real bummer if more riders became this selective and we wouldn't see them.
Yes, exactly.
In no other sport can you decide to just not play for 2 months. And,
Right.
People are buying tickets. They want to see their favorite players. And we saw this happen a little bit in cyclocross already. Molly, I'm sure you remember the time where people that also race road would come in for the tail end of the cyclocross season, completely dominate and disappear again. And that kind of messed with the whole series system that cyclocross has.
Yeah, they started talking about do we ban riders from the World Cup if they miss a certain number of them, or do they not count? And, it was a huge bummer in, I think it was 2022 when World Championships were in Bentonville. Sorry, Pidcock. Pidcock was the only guy who showed up out of kind of the big players, because the rest of them were getting ready for road. So I would not want to have to be making those decisions for sure. And I will say about Pauline's approach, it could have not worked out, right? Like, that's sort of the other thing. That was a bold move to disappear for 10 weeks, especially as someone who's not necessarily a great proven road racer who's had a lot of time in the peloton and, doing literally any stage race. There were a lot of smaller stage races you could argue would have made more sense for her to jump into, just for the sake of the practice of a few days of riding and seeing how the group works together and stuff. So it could have been strategically a terrible idea, and it paid off. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if Demi or Kasia decides to take that route next year. I wouldn't be shocked if one of the big players does end up taking a lighter calendar to prep. Okay, do we have any other storylines that we haven't mentioned? I think we should probably wrap here with a Queen of the Tour before we have to go. Obviously, we're going to call PFP as the Queen of the Tour. I mean, who else? But who are the other honorable mentions? Who were your favorite riders? I know we've mentioned them a lot in the last 9 days, but let's give them one final shout out before we wrap up season 1 of the Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast.
Yeah, well, I would go with, we've mentioned this name a lot, Kim LaCourt, because she held, yellow. She made history, but also she forced a lot of teams to rethink their approach. They had them feeling a little nervous, like, can she climb? Can she hold on to yellow and this and that? And I think that made for very exciting racing.
I like it. I'm going to go Franzi Koch and Lot Kopecky, actually. Koch for just the number of attacks that woman made. Like, I think probably 15 or so attacks in the 9 days, at least, that actually held for a reasonable amount of time. Just kept going. She must be so wrecked at this point. And then, yeah, Lakapeki, back problems coming in, a lot of pain, but still managed to be the world's best, the world championship domestique, and just did so much work and still was so up there, even though we kind of assumed she'd probably be out of it after halfway through when it looked like she just kept falling behind. She just kept coming back. Love an underdog who isn't actually normally an underdog.
I don't like this question. I'm not gonna. I think throughout the race I've mentioned names, and I agree with you guys. And it's. I'm gonna take a. This isn't a lazy answer, but I gotta say, like, the women's peloton. I'm sorry, but not sorry.
What a
really.
cop-out.
It's not, though.
Like,
Every woman has a story at this race, and there's too many of them now, which is a celebration in itself, to tell them all. I mean, the women who barely make the time cut, the women who don't make the time cut, the DSs, the Swannies, the massage therapists. I'm like the amount of sort of that's expected of them. And I of course, there should be a lot expected of them, but the social media engagements, the interviews, like all this stuff, it's a lot. And it went from being a sport that sort of flew under the radar and frankly, not a lot of people watch because they couldn't watch it, to something where very much they are in the limelight and under the microscope, and they're handling it very, very well and racing every day, racing their hearts out, and yeah, giving us something to talk about. And it's really cool. So it's not a cop-out, but it is a little bit of a cop-out because it's too hard to pick.
yeah. No, I don't think it's a cop-out at all.
Thanks.
Because, it also just, it just adds to the movement of women's sports, and also just to also have that along with incredible tactics that we saw throughout this tour. How exciting was that? Like, we saw so many different things. We saw riders having to improvise and on the moment come up, like that first stage when Mariana Boss won and PFP, we thought she was going to win. And then, Kim LaCourt attacked and all this. Like, that was incredible tactics. Like, I really, really enjoyed that side of it.
Yeah, I think for that reason, my shout out as the best team was hard to call just one team, but AG Sudal was for me super impressive in how they worked as a team. The way Justine Gergire played the ultimate teammate, constantly making sure Sarah Gigante was well positioned, helping her through the descents. Kim LaCourt in yellow, then switching over to work for Sarah. Like, that whole team raced extremely smart and cohesive, and they just, man, they are each other's biggest supporters, and I love to see that. They were genuinely stoked for each other, genuinely willing to give it them all. And yeah, I think one of my shout outs definitely goes to that team in general, and what must go on behind the scenes as well to build such a unit and such a tight pack. It's really commendable. As a individual rider, I also want to shout out to is Lorena Wiebes. The best sprinter in the women's peloton for quite some time, but this green jersey was eluding her, and she didn't get a lot of attention or recognition for it, but she finally got the green jersey. And that was definitely missing from her palmares, and now she has it, and that's worth recognizing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost wish
guess
we had a Netflix Unchained of the Women's Tour de France. Imagine how many other nuggets we would get out of that.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I
Looking
guess
at you, Netflix.
I can segue off my own answer of saying that everyone is my queen of the tour is we're curious what you listeners want to hear from us next. And in terms of women's cycling, do you want us to keep talking about women's road racing? Are you interested in other disciplines? Are you interested in nutrition? Or are you interested in tech? We are interested in all of it and available. So yeah, Molly, how can people tell us what they'd like from the Queen Stage?
Season 2.
So season 2, yeah. So this wraps up season 1, but we are already thinking about what this could be going forward. But we're going to need to hear from everyone what they want to hear from us as we sort of start thinking about that. So obviously, make sure that you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. 5-star ratings and reviews really help. We're looking for input from you. You can find us over on queenstage.cc on Instagram. We'll also put the links to our website and email in the show notes here. So please drop us a line. Let us know what you want to hear. Obviously, if you are a company out there that really wants to get involved, maybe help out with some sponsorship, we are also more than willing to entertain those possibilities. And of course, before we go, thank you to Ruckus Composites for making the show a reality, from just the idea coming out of Sean Small's head. And, now we're season 1. We made it through the tour. And thank you to all of you for listening and for writing us your no dumb questions, for sharing your comments, for texting us, for messaging us, all of the things. It's been such a fun journey, and I think we are all very excited to see where it goes next. So we'll see you at the races, I guess.
Thanks.
Bye.